What up, leaguers? Welcome to the Spectacular Spoiler League. I'm the Pandan Superman, the mayor of Hype City, Hazyrome, and as always, I'm joined by the Gotham Knight, the Prime Minister of Post-Production, Deepboyce. And today I have a cold, but that's not going to stop me from talking about the top 10 mystical characters that we want to see in the Arrowverse. It was recently confirmed that Constantine would be in Legends of Tomorrow Season 4 if Legends of Tomorrow is renewed for a 4th season. We may find out soon, maybe not. But regardless, Constantine is in the cards for the Arrowverse. That got me and Deepboyce thinking, hey, what other mystical characters or characters who've been involved in magic-based stories we want to see pop them in the Arrowverse or Legends of Tomorrow, what have you. So, that being said, Deepboyce.
Yep.
Let's start off with number 10, baby.
All right, number 10 is FELIX FAUST.
FELIX FAUST.
From DC Comics. I mean, you've probably seen him he was in Justice League Dark, I believe. The animated film. And Young Justice?
I believe he made an appearance in Young Justice as well. Yes. Yeah.
But I guess people are most familiar if they watched the Constantine TV show. Where he was...
Potentially,
he made an appearance in the Constantine TV show. Unfortunately, we never got the chance to see it. It's in the backlog somewhere. But, like Hazy said, Constantine is apparently going to be a series regular on Legends of Tomorrow. So there's no reason for them to not incorporate some of the aspects of that show into the Arrowverse, whether it be Legends of Tomorrow or any of the other shows. And since FELIX FAUST already has a bit of a backstory, has already been established in Constantine, they could just kind of throw him right in. You know, a character who apparently in the comics is old as all hell.
Yeah, he's...
at least his soul is like 5,000 years old. And
he's obsessed with like the idea of continuing his immortality. I mean, he's immortal as it is, but he's obsessed with the pursuit of like mystical knowledge. Yeah. So he basically just keeps reviving himself in that respect. But I mean, he does a lot of things, but I know in the Constantine show, he was definitely stealing souls from people's bodies and whatnot. So
yeah. And look, I mean, not just speedsters are able to travel through time. Maybe you can have people's, wizards and warlocks' souls travel through time as well and inhabit other bodies. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, the cool thing about FELIX FAUST to me is that, like, this character is someone who spans so many different time periods. Mm-hmm. So it's reasonable that, like, he could look different and be a different person in different time periods, and that's completely up Legends of Tomorrow's alley, right? Yeah. So I think that's a natural fit.
And they're kind of already doing it with Damien Dark to some degree.
Right.
He kind of exists in various, at least in the last 100 years. So why not kind of take that same aspect with FELIX FAUST, kind of, make him a small Kang the Conqueror type of character.
Interesting.
From Marvel Comics, a character that exists at many times all at once. Maybe FELIX FAUST's soul can just travel and transport wherever he needs to be, whenever he needs to be.
Speaking of souls who can travel places, number 9, we've got Deadman, a.k.a. Boston Brand. So Boston Brand, a lot of you may know his history, but essentially this is a supernatural hero. He was murdered, and until his soul can be put to rest by finding the people who killed him when he was alive, he's roaming the earth, being able to hop from people's bodies. It's sort of like a ghost or a wandering soul, and he can take over people's bodies and, enact his will through them. Now, the interesting thing about him is he can't interact with the physical world directly. So, he has to like possess bodies. And I think that a character like Deadman will not just add to the mystical side of things, but also the supernatural side of things in the Arrowverse, or in particular Legends of Tomorrow, where Constantine could possibly be appearing.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. And again, I mean, he kind of is from that recent period of time. I mean, he's been around for a while. You can say that he was around since, I guess, I don't know what the fictional history is of the character. Was it the 40s or maybe even the 20s? If he's from the 20s, the older Vixen can maybe be aware of him. Maybe, they used to roll back in the day.
Yeah, and he got his powers from someone named Ramakrishna. Yeah. So Ramakrishna is someone who's closely tied to Nanda Parbat. And that's sort of where Deadman relaxes for, when he's chilling, when he's on his free time, I guess, doing what ghosts do. I don't know what he does. Maybe he takes like hot showers. I don't know. So we already have Nanda Parbat introduced in the Arrowverse. We already had Ra's al Ghul introduced.
Yeah.
We already had a mystical idea introduced with the Lazarus Pit. What if that wasn't the full extent of the League of Shadows or League of Assassins' is mystical nature? You know what I mean? Mystical ties.
Totally agree. Totally agree. And he's definitely a character that could fit with the Legends. And
Definitely.
he is, I'd say he's beloved among the DC fans. You know, you don't see him often, but I think when he does kind of pop around, people are like, oh, Deadman. That's a good choice.
Right, man. But anyway, Deepboyce, hit us with number 8.
Number 8 is Garth, a.k.a. Tempest. Not Garth from the Teen Titans Beast Boy, but the original Aqualad. Tempest, who now goes by the name of Tempest on the Titans team in the comics. And I
think the reason why we're going with Tempest is just more so that like you don't have to worry about ties to Aquaman.
Yeah.
Like Atlantis is already confirmed to be on at least a different Earth. You know, in the Arrowverse. But, you know, we haven't had Atlantis sort of introduced in the main universe. But you could introduce him without having to worry about Aquaman if you just called him Tempest. And maybe he doesn't even have ties to Aquaman.
Absolutely. I mean, we already got a small little Easter egg of Themyscira in one of the episodes of Legends of Tomorrow. So I don't see why you can't have either full-blown Atlantis or just a character or two from there. And if you know anything, you know, if you know even a little bit about DC Comics or Aquaman or Aqualad, if you've seen Young Justice, they do practice magic. There is a branch of sorcery that is native to the Atlanteans, and we already have, you know, Constantine. We've got the totems by two of the characters of the Legends there, so I think he would fit right in. And really, there isn't much of a roadblock to introduce that character into the Legends team. You already got speedsters, and you know he's a normal looking dude. Maybe you could do a few little gills on there, some practical effects, and he's got his water powers, and you're good to go.
Yeah. And you know, let's be clear, we're talking about some of these characters as fitting in with the Legends team. We don't necessarily need them to be like 100% full-time Legends. They could work with the team or guest star in a couple episodes. So we're not necessarily saying they need to join the team or bump other people off. But a guy like Tempest, you know, he could be pretty powerful, and there'd probably be some sort of Arrowverse nerf. And when I say Arrowverse nerf, you guys know what I mean. Like characters in the Arrowverse tend to be, they tend to be slightly less powerful than their counterparts in the comics, which is totally understandable. But I think Tempest is a dope character to add. He could sort of bring in some Atlantean lore. And I think with the Arrowverse sort of needing to diversify itself a little bit more, I think that's a tremendous and fantastic way to go. But Deepboyce, number 7, we've got the Spectre. Okay, once again, another powerful character. Possibly somebody who could be a little bit too OP, but Jim Corrigan was introduced in the Constantine show already. You know, he's a homicide detective, and he actually has, in the show, he actually saw a projection of how he dies, and it alludes to him meeting the Spectre, the Spectre persona, and sort of embodying that role. Now, you know, the Spectre is like, essentially, he's like the cosmic you know, embodiment of vengeance. So that's a very powerful spiritual character. But a character like the Spectre doesn't necessarily have to be on the Legends team or a villain. He could maybe be somebody who's a little bit of an adversary, a little bit more sort of, I guess, a little bit ambivalent about you know, which side he's on, as long as he gets to achieve his ends or his goals towards vengeance, right?
Absolutely. I mean, they could set him up where there's a villain that the Legends or any other, you know, team in the Arrowverse has to take down, and the Spectre has a one-track mind. He needs to achieve vengeance by any means necessary, and it turns out that, let's say, the Legends, they want to maybe capture this villain instead of kill him outright. And like you said, maybe they'll come to blows, or they'll have some sort of issue. I mean, Malice seems like some type of super powered being, so they're kind of they're entering that kind of territory. So why not have that available with the Spectre, who, you know, could be universe bending in terms of how his powers are, or he can be a little bit more toned down. There have been a lot of different interpretations of that character, and like you said, in Constantine, they didn't really follow through with it on the show because unfortunately it got canceled. But he could play more of a, you know, where it's more a little bit of Jim Corrigan sometimes gets, you know, becomes the Spectre, maybe Ghost Rider-ish in a sense.
Yeah, yeah, and definitely a lot cheaper than you know, doing the Ghost Rider budget, because we know they had that problem over on the Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. They were like, yo, we can't do Ghost Rider no more because we ain't got no more money left. Oh, yeah. So y'all gonna have to settle for just seeing Robbie Reyes. So, you know, the Spectre would be a lot cheaper budget. You may have to pay for some makeup to make the dude look a little pale. Yeah. I mean, that could just be a camera sending you adjust. I don't know, True. But it could be a lot easier thing for them to adapt, man. But Deepboyce, man, hit him with number 6.
Number 6 is the Sandman, or as he's known in DC canon, Dream of the Endless.
I got scared when you said that name. I smacked my mic. I was like, oh, the Dream of the Endless.
Is a character that comes from the Sandman comic written by Neil Gaiman. Neil Gaiman also wrote American Gods, which is a show on Starz. You know, he's an author that a lot of people like. It's one of my favorite comic books that has, you know, intertwined itself into the DC verse, Arrowverse, or not the Arrowverse, but rather the DC Comics canon universe. So, you know, again, this character is way super powerful. He's on the level of being like a cosmic being, but he's a little bit more benevolent, tongue-tied there. He's not so much of a, you know, bloodthirsty or wanting to, you know, enact righteousness like the Spectre, but he has, you know, his own intentions. Generally, just trying to making sure that there's balance in the universe, or balance in the dreamscape, which again is something that they could, you know, explore, whether it's Legend of Tomorrow, maybe even The Flash, you know, or some of the other shows. You know, a little bit of the backstory is, I guess the story starts out where someone tries to capture him, and he gets captured for an extended period of time, and what ends up happening is people go crazy because their dreams are out of control, and dreams are manifesting into the real world. So maybe the Legends are tasked with trying to save or you know, put the Sandman back into his realm and helping him, you know, reverse all of these nightmares and ghoulish beings that we dream up when we go to sleep, because it's an other realm that exists in the DC universe.
And one thing about, you know, a character like Dream is that, you know, he's a being that, once again, is like, he spends time, like he's sort of a supernatural being, and the idea that, you know, he's in control of dreams and stories, like Legends already takes stories and turns them on their head, takes history, turns it on its head. Like, what if dreams and stories were integrated as sort of like time anomalies where they're sort of messing with the natural flow of time? I feel like that could integrate perfectly into the Legends show in particular, for sure. I mean, it could even integrate into a show like The Flash too. Yeah. I mean, because they've dealt with like timeline issues and things like that as well, or alternate Earths.
Or maybe an interesting twist in Legends, maybe certain important people in history gain inspiration through their dreams, and that's out of whack, and they never get their ideas to allow them to build or to create or to do whatever it is that they need to do. Or maybe they're just, I don't know, stuck in sleep and they just can't wake up.
That right there adds, I think, an interesting dimension with the idea of like Inception, where you have to go into people's dreams and sort of manipulate, you know, how they think and how they act and their motives. Like Inception, I think, was a fantastic movie that I think, especially with a show like Legends that tends to borrow from like different forms of source material. Like, what if they borrowed from something like Inception and sort of had like, you know, a string of episodes or an episode based on that sort of ideology? I think that could be really dope. That would be really cool.
That would be really interesting to watch. And like the rules, definitely, like the laws of physics would no longer apply. So then you could have, you know, someone who's a strong will like Sarah Lance being the most powerful person in the dreamscape or the dreamverse, and she's out here even more powerful than Wally or whoever else is on the team, depending on you know, how much willpower they have within these dreams.
Right, and we've seen in multiple, like, in like so many forms of media where dreams come into the picture, you always have nightmares and people's fears coming to manifest themselves. So I think that could be a dope way to even maybe show returning characters who we've seen in the Arrowverse already pop up, or, you know, just sort of flip elements of the Arrowverse on its head, man. But Deepboyce, on to numero 5, Deepboyce's favorite character. He loves this character above all else. He called me up on the phone late last night. He was like, Hazy, when we making this list, we gotta put number 5, Blue Beetle, specifically Jaime Reyes. Add a little youth to this group. Jaime Reyes, I think the interesting thing with him is the Reach technology and the tie to the Reach and aliens. So the Arrowverse has already introduced the idea of the Dominators. There are aliens out there, not just in Supergirl's universe, but in the main, Arrow Flash Legends universe. And the Scarab that powers Blue Beetle, or that I guess creates the Blue Beetle, it has some interesting ideas behind it. In that, in comic book continuity, it's been explained as a product of the Reach. The Reach being an alien civilization. But basically it being like Reach technology, a Reach weapon that they use in order to conquer planets. The Reach also have like a sentient AI in the Beetle. Like the Beetle, the Scarab, I should say, sort of thinks on its own as well. And I think that could be an interesting concept for the Legends. In addition to that, the Scarab has also been portrayed as sort of a mystical force as well. Something that isn't just technological, but also mystical. Like currently in DC Rebirth, character by the name of Dr. Fate actually told Ted Kord, Blue Beetle, that the Scarab was magical, despite the Reach origins that we all know about. So I think it has the opportunity to dabble in both worlds and sort of toe the line between the mystical side of things and the alien side of things. Now, the reason why we say Jaime Reyes is because DC, for some reason, has, I guess, the Arrowverse was unable to use Ted Kord originally, and maybe even the Blue Beetle character overall. Yeah. Like, this story's been circulated so many times that Ray Palmer was actually supposed to be Ted Kord, but they weren't allowed to use Ted Kord, so they changed the character to Ray Palmer Adam. And even the way Ray Palmer behaves is like very much caricature of Ted Kord in the comics. Yeah. But maybe they're allowed to. Maybe they could use Jaime Reyes. Maybe Jaime Reyes is important to some sort of alien invasion or some sort of mystical element as well.
Yeah, and some diversity is not a bad thing.
Not a bad thing.
Despite what some people on the internet might say, it's not a bad thing. And
I agree.
And also, this could be the opportunity for them to get that type of, half mystical, half science element right, unlike what they did with the Hawks in season 1. This could be the chance to right the wrongs of season 1, where the Hawks in a very similar situation. Sometimes they're mystical, sometimes they're their own race, sometimes there's a little bit of both. I mean, honestly, it's not like aliens don't have their own deities and their own religions. It could be something mystical in that effect.
For sure. For sure. Yeah. I mean, I could totally see on a show like Legends, like time travel on an alien planet. Like, what if you're not just time traveling on Earth? All the settings we've seen so far have been on planet Earth. What if it's something different than that?
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah. And we'll see. They probably him and Wally probably hit it off.
Yeah. Wally could use another young person to interact with for sure. Yeah, for sure. But anyway, Deepboyce, hit him with number 4, man. Who we got?
Number 4, we've got the Swamp Thing, the Protector of the Green.
Yes, sir.
One of I guess Constantine's biggest supporting characters, I'd say. Usually, at least in comics,
I think so.
You see him often, and I think he's a pretty important DC character. You see him here and there, either in cartoons or in movies. And I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they put him in a DCEU movie. But as of now, we have no idea. We'll see where that goes.
We almost thought Constantine was closed off too because of plans for a Justice League Dark movie, but absolutely, as we talked about earlier, that things may have changed. Yeah,
and like we said earlier, if Legends has been more of a sci-fi show, but there's no, especially this season, they've exploring the mystical side of the DC universe or the Arrowverse. So a character like Swamp Thing definitely can reside within the mystical end of things, but he can also be more of a, I guess, sci-fi-ish in a way, like Grodd. Let's say a character like Grodd. Yeah, a character who, and again, very ambiguous as to whether is he a good guy, is he a bad guy, what's he fighting for. His first and foremost, I guess, priority is protecting the green, which is, I guess, the essence of all vegetation throughout the entire universe, and that's, you can tie that into a single episode or a recurring theme that pops up within a season where there is, again, some sort of mystical essence or something where a bad guy's trying to make use of it, or someone like Constantine who constantly, lies to his friends and uses them, to his advantage, may need that power for whatever it is that they're trying to do, and Swamp Thing either reluctantly agrees or is tricked, and hey, he has to start busting some heads. But Constantine, Swamp Thing could definitely be an interesting addition to pretty much any show or any movie or anything, in my opinion. Or even he could even serve as more of a, I guess, an overall just essence or presence within the show, episode, season, etc., etc. Like we said earlier with Sandman, where he is just someone that they speak with or check in on, or someone that is guiding them from a realm that they can't quite really understand.
Yeah, not somebody who's just like conveniently just a villain or a good guy. And I think, once again, going back to Legends, that's a show that toes the line well between like people that sort of have or entities or beings or whatever that sort of have mixed motives and motivations. Like one might even call Rip Hunter a little bit of an anti-hero. Like Rip Hunter has done some questionable things on that show. Oh, yeah. And I think introducing characters like that into the Arrowverse, that adds a diversity that they don't have to their characterizations, I would say.
Yeah.
Steps outside of like the whole cookie cutter mentality of, this guy's good, this guy's bad. So yeah, Swamp Thing, man. At number 3, we've got The Question, and specifically Renee Montoya. I have my own motivations for Renee Montoya, not just because, diversity for diversity's sake, also because Renee Montoya has ties to Batman. And I feel like this would be, because this could sort of be a wink, wink, nod, nod to Gotham. It could also be...
Wait, which Gotham are we talking about here?
No, not Fox Gotham. See, see, that wasn't even on my mind, man. But you had to bring it up, bro. You had to stir up old negative feelings, man. No, we're not talking about Gotham, baby. We're talking about the Arrowverse.
I was gonna say we can maybe throw in Fish.
No, we're talking about Gotham City. We're talking about Gotham City, my man. We're not talking about that bullshit you talking about, man. Okay. All right, thank you. Anyway, Renee Montoya. Also, The Question is also a character that has, sort of been alluded to because Hub City is a city that's been named constantly in the Arrowverse. Characters have gone to Hub City. I believe Roy Harper was in Hub City hiding out. You know what I mean? Like Hub City has appeared in, many times. And I feel like that's The Question's territory. And it's time that we sort of introduce that character to the fold. I think The Question is a gritty character, potentially a little bit crazy from time to time, specifically the Vic Sage version. Yeah. But you may be saying to yourself, why? Like, how does he have any ties to mysticism? How does he have any ties to, the mystical? Well, The Question is a character that's always investigated things that are sometimes considered fringe for a lot of DC characters, including things that could border on the lines of conspiracy. And oftentimes, he's onto something. And in particular, in a story, the Trinity of Sin storyline in the comic books, The Question, and this was actually an unidentified version of The Question. It was, I believe, meant to be a male, but we don't know if it was Vic Sage or whatever, because I'm not sure that storyline ever reached a conclusion. But the Trinity of Sin, they were 3 beings who were accused of doing something that was completely like, when you consider like all the eons and all time, their sins were some of the worst sins ever to be transgressed, and they were punished. Their memories were wiped. And they were, basically like outcast by, a bunch of the Earth's wizards. Once again, adding to that mystical element. Now, I could totally see The Question joining a team like the Legends on a journey of discovery, and in so maybe in doing so, maybe his identity is scattered across time. Maybe the pieces of who The Question is, I say his, but I'm talking about Renee Montoya, so I should be saying her. Her identities may be scattered across time. Maybe the Legends are on a journey to rediscover who The Question is, and thus rediscover what may be a threat to time or the world or whatever it may be, because that's what the Legends do. They fix time, essentially. They protect time, and I feel like The Question being a gritty character and also a detective. Like, I don't think there are many characters like that in the Arrowverse that are straight up detectives. Like, you have
Detective Lance.
People that are Detective Lance doesn't investigate, really. Like the Detective Lance hasn't done many like investigating and much investigating. Like I'm talking about somebody who is outright like part of solving a mystery. And I think The Question brings that grittiness to the table. And I would love to see Renee Montoya in that role, man.
Definitely, that's dope. I mean, just you saying that just give me the idea of imagine a season where it's a season-long investigation where the Question has lost his or her memory, and they're going through time to find clues and to piece together this, not only just the essence, but this larger crime of something that's amiss, something that's going on. That would be that'd be pretty dope. And I mean, hey, why not mix certain aspects of Vic Sage and Renee Montoya? It could be Renee Montoya, but she acts like Vic Sage. She's just kind of kooky and wacky and out of her mind.
Absolutely. Arrowverse has done that plenty of times, but they've taken like a character and, you know, folded them in to other versions of the character. Absolutely, man. And, you know, part of that Trinity of Sin storyline are there two other strangers called the Phantom Stranger, or two other people called the Phantom Stranger and Pandora. Also, they could be part of that sort of figuring out what's going on. Maybe one of them serves as the villain for the season. You know, so I think that's a cool idea. Also, they have the chance to piggyback off of maybe the repercussions of destroying the Spear of Destiny, because in that comic book storyline, the Spear of Destiny is like super important to the overall, like, you know, plot of trying to rediscover their identities. And by their identities, I'm referring to the question Pandora and the Phantom Stranger. So I think they can do some dope stuff with that. I think they could play around with that. I think, you know, the Arrowverse has not tried to adhere to the comic book storylines, and that might be perceived as a good thing, but I think that's also sometimes a weakness of the Arrowverse too, where they get a little lost because they don't have something to follow. You know what I mean? So
Agreed.
Anyway, Deepboyce, hit it with number 2. Who we got?
Number 2, we've got a dynamic duo here, and that's Giovanni John Zatara and his daughter Zatanna Zatara. I mean, when you think of magic and mysticism in the DC universe, these are literally probably one of the first 2 characters that you think of.
Definitely. Again,
characters that can be in shows or movies or pretty much anything, and they will work absolutely perfectly. And Zatanna, at least for example, someone who has been in relationships with Constantine, could literally be kind of the other half of the coin, where Constantine is, you know, he delves into the darker side of things and has to get his hands dirty in a way that most other characters wouldn't. Zatanna is kind of like, okay, well, this is a little bit more altruistic and a more true way of a hero to do things within the magical realm of the DC universe, where, you know, her priorities are, let me not disrespect a lot of my friends and trick them and you know, backstab them, and let's make sure that we maintain the order of whatever kind of magic or needs to be maintained within the DC universe. So I mean, she's a really flexible character that can be put into pretty much any type of situation. She could be, you know, street level in terms of her power level, or she could be, you know, far more formidable, probably strong or capable enough to defeat someone like Superman, who is generally weak to magic, something that we've seen before. And then obviously we have her father, John Zatara, or just Zatara, who, you know, I guess we kind of wanted Zatanna a little bit more than her father, but we thought, I mean, they usually work well in tandem, and to have him there as a supporting character of sorts, who's, you know, maybe out of the picture on the sidelines, and maybe they're trying to save him, or maybe he's
maybe he had a hand in training Constantine. Yeah, maybe he had a hand in sort of teaching him, you know, how to use his powers. Or maybe if DC doesn't want to touch Zatanna, maybe Giovanni or John or Zatara, whatever name he goes by these days, you know, maybe they go with him. Yeah, you know,
absolutely.
So I think Zatanna is like a fan favorite. Another character who has ties to Batman, very close ties to Batman. And you can sort of wink, wink, nod, nod at those origins as well. But I think that's, I think she's a good fold to Constantine. I think, you know, even if it was a situation where Constantine is, you know, he has sort of his own motivations for doing something, and Zatanna, maybe she's trying to, you know, stop him or do something that's sort of, you know, adversarial to him, and it's sort of a conflict that the Legends or, you know, what have you have to deal with. I think that could be cool, man. But moving on to number 1, Deepboyce, you mentioned something about making sure things are kept in order. How about a Lord of Order, Dr. Fate? If you are a fan of Spectacular Spoiler League, if you watch Spectacular Spoiler League, if you're one of the leaguers, you know how much me and Deepboyce love Dr. Fate, and we need him to get some love. We want Kent Nelson in this show as some sort of force trying to maintain order. And what better foil to someone maintaining order than a person like Constantine, always doing something silly with his magical powers, always, you know, doing things that could, you know, disturb order. once again, another person that can sort of step in and maybe not be a hero or a villain, but sort of be a force, you know, that has their own motivations. So, you know, Nabu is an ancient entity, a lord of order. He has he inhabits a golden helmet, and once you put on the helmet, a human puts on that helmet, Nabu takes over and becomes Dr. Fate. It's also, I think, an interesting dynamic between Dr. Fate and his hosts, because there's sort of been an issue with Nabu and him, you know, taking the reins a little bit too strongly of the host that he's taking over. Nabu is obsessed with maintaining order, and thus that can come into conflict with people like the hosts, like Kent Nelson, who want to live their lives, who want to, you know, do something besides fight magic, you know. So Agreed. I think Dr. Fate is a cool character. Once again, very powerful, but I wouldn't mind if he got a little bit of a nerf for the sake of the show. But Dr. Fate, I need to see some Dr. Fate love on DC's part in live action. Please do it.
Or maybe they just they just got the helmet and it's traded from character to character. And Nabu,
yes,
each of the characters on the Legends can become the host at any point in time.
Maybe their goal is to find the true host or the successor. Maybe it's Ken Nelson. Maybe it's, you know, another host. There have been a number of hosts that have taken on the mantle of Dr. Fate, but that could be a fun plot device, I think, for the show. I mean, we saw, I mean, Young Justice is probably the show that did that best in terms of, you know, playing around with the mantle of Dr. Fate. You know, Aqualad wore the helmet at one point. Wally West wore the helmet at one point. ZATARA won the helmet at one point, speaking of one of the people that we mentioned. So it could be interesting, you know, especially with a character like Constantine. Maybe Constantine has an affinity for magic. Maybe him and Nabu, you know, maybe there's a conflict there, you know. So I think that would be awesome. That being said, everybody, let us know what you think of our top 10 list of mystical characters. I was going to say 10 characters, but that doesn't make any sense. Our top 10. Let us know what you think of our top 10 mystical characters that we want to see in the Arrowverse. Let us know if you disagree with anybody on this list. Let us know if you had people that we should have had on this list that we didn't have, and let us know what you think of Constantine being on Legends of Tomorrow. Feel free to comment below, and by all means, hit that subscribe button. Join up with the Spectacular Spoiler League. Join the cause. Help us get the word out there and help us spread the leaguer love all around, man. Hit that little bell icon and turn on notifications, and please drop a like on this video to help get this video out there. We'll see you guys on the next one. I'm so sick, I need to lay my head down. I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace out. Peace.